Welcome in, everybody, to another Deep Dive. It's January 20th, 2025, and man, oh man, what a day for news.
It really is. There's a lot to unpack today, from political shakeups and international agreements to some, well, let's just say unusual happenings around the globe.
Definitely unusual, for sure.
Yeah.
And speaking of a world full of happenings, let's start with what might be a major turning point in the Middle East. The Israel-Hamas ceasefire.
Right after 15 months
It's been so long.
of conflict, a ceasefire has finally taken effect. We're even seeing the release of some hostages.
Imagine the relief for those families.
Oh, absolutely. To understand the significance of this, though, we need to remember just how devastating this conflict has been for both sides. The road to this agreement was anything but easy, and this is key. The ceasefire is incredibly delicate.
Very fragile.
Just a first step.
Yeah, all the articles I've been reading agree with that.
Yeah.
They're saying there's a second phase of negotiations coming up, and Hamas is demanding a full Israeli withdrawal.
Yeah.
That's a pretty big hurdle.
It is. And on top of that, there's the issue of the remaining hostages held by Hamas, including Israeli soldiers. So while this ceasefire offers a much-needed break from the violence, it's way too early to say if it will actually lead to lasting peace.
Okay, so let's shift gears completely, because we've got Donald Trump's second inauguration today, the second non-consecutive term as President of the United States. This is literally something we've never seen before in American history.
You're exactly right. It's unprecedented. And this raises a lot of questions about what a second Trump presidency will actually look like, both within the U.S. and globally. It's highly likely that his America First agenda will continue to be a driving force, focusing on immigration trade deals and bolstering American economic interests.
And how do you think this will affect relationships with other countries? Especially with some of the, shall we say, strongly worded opinions he's voiced in the past.
Right. We also can't forget about his VP J.D. Vance. It's his first term, and Vance's influence on the administration is something we'll need to watch closely. It just adds another layer of complexity to the political landscape.
And speaking of interesting details, did you know that the inauguration was held inside because it was so cold outside? Like record low temperatures and wild winds. Crazy.
Yeah, it's a good reminder that even the most carefully planned events can get thrown off by something completely unexpected.
Definitely unexpected. And unfortunately, speaking of unexpected, there was a tragic incident in D.C. today. A 26-year-old Indian student, Ravi Teja, was shot and killed at a gas station. It's just heartbreaking, especially on a day that's supposed to be about new beginnings.
Absolutely. It's a stark reminder that even amidst these huge political events, life goes on with all its joys and sorrows. This incident has sparked a lot of fear and anger within the Indian student community in the U.S. Understandably, there's a feeling of vulnerability being far from home and facing these unexpected dangers.
And a lot of people are criticizing the Indian government's response. Some are saying they haven't done enough to protect their students studying abroad. It raises some big questions about responsibility and what measures need to be taken to ensure the safety of students who are in foreign countries.
It's a very complex issue for sure, with no easy answers. But these questions about safety and support are critical, and they need to be addressed.
Now let's talk money, specifically this report from Oxfam International that states that billionaire wealth surged by $2 trillion in 2024.
Wow.
That's 3 times faster than the previous year. It's unbelievable.
Those are some mind-boggling numbers, and this report really highlights a growing global concern: wealth inequality. This isn't just about the rich getting richer, it's about the gap between the wealthiest and everyone else growing at an alarming rate. And that has very real consequences.
Yeah, the report goes on to highlight some of those consequences: increased poverty, social unrest, and even the potential for political instability. It's a pretty grim picture.
It is. When such a significant portion of wealth is concentrated in the hands of so few people, it creates a cascade of societal problems. It stifles social mobility, limits access to opportunities, and could even threaten the foundations of democratic systems.
So what can we do? What can be done to address this growing inequality?
Yeah.
Is it even possible to turn the tide?
That's the million-dollar question, isn't it? Economists and policymakers are grappling with this issue. Some people argue for higher taxes on the wealthy to redistribute wealth. Others think we should focus on investing in education and job training to create more opportunities. There's no single easy solution, but the first step is acknowledging the problem and having honest conversations about solutions.
Okay, we've covered some pretty serious topics. How about we take a detour into something a little lighter?
Yeah.
A bit unexpected. Melania Trump launched her own cryptocurrency today.
Oh, wow. That's interesting. And it really speaks to a few different trends we're seeing. First, it taps into the growing popularity of meme coins, which have absolutely taken the crypto world by storm.
It does seem like everyone's trying to get in on the crypto game these days. This also raises questions about the ethics of the Trump family being involved in cryptocurrency.
Absolutely, especially since Donald Trump has criticized Bitcoin in the past. Now both he and Melania are launching their own coins. It really makes you think about their motivations and if there are any potential conflicts of interest.
It feels like there's a lot more to unpack with this story, but unfortunately we're going to have to move on for now.
Yes, we have a lot more to get to today. We have other big international headlines, including a controversial execution in China and an arrest in the attack on Bollywood star Saif Ali Khan. And of course, we'll touch on some of the more, let's say, unique stories of the day.
Stay with us as we continue our deep dive into the news of January 20th, 2025.
Let's move on to a story that's unfolded in China today. A man named Fan Weiqi was executed for a car attack that killed 35 people last year.
Oh, wow. That's awful. What happened?
It happened in Zhuhai, and it looks like Fan intentionally drove his car into a crowded pedestrian area. It was one of the deadliest car attacks in China in recent history, and during the trial, it was determined that this was a deliberate act. This case has sparked a lot of discussion in China about public safety and how to prevent something like this from happening again.
It makes you wonder what could drive someone to do something so horrific.
Unfortunately, the details about his motive are still unclear. It's a question a lot of people are asking as they try to understand this tragedy.
In other news in India, there's another high-profile case that's been making headlines. The arrest of a suspect in the attack on Bollywood star Saif Ali Khan.
Yeah, this case has been pretty wild. Mumbai police initially detained someone in Chhattisgarh, but it turned out to be a case of mistaken identity.
Oh, wow.
But they eventually tracked down the actual suspect, a Bangladeshi national named Shariful Islam Shahzad. They followed a digital payment trail after he bought breakfast.
Really? So they got him because he bought breakfast?
Pretty much. It seems like he got a little careless after the attack. But, yeah, what do we know about the attack itself? How is Saif Ali Khan doing?
I was wondering the same thing.
Well, the details are still coming out, but it looks like Shahzad allegedly went into Khan's home under false pretenses, and then during what appears to have been a burglary attempt, he stabbed Khan and members of his staff.
Oh, no. That's terrible. I hope Saif Ali Khan is doing okay.
He's recovering from his injuries, but it must have been a terrifying experience for everyone involved. This incident has sent shockwaves through the Indian film industry. It shows how vulnerable even high-profile individuals can be, and it's raised concerns about security measures and how to prevent this kind of thing from happening again. As for Shahzad, he's saying he's being framed, and he's in police custody while the investigation continues.
So he says he was framed. It's a good reminder that even those who seem to live in a different world like celebrities can still be targets of violence. Speaking of different worlds, let's talk about the online world, specifically TikTok, or should I say the former world of TikTok, at least in the U.S. The ban on the app officially went into effect yesterday.
Yeah, this ban has been a long time coming. There have been concerns about TikTok's parent company, ByteDance, and its potential ties to the Chinese government. The U.S. government has been worried about data security, specifically the potential for user data to be accessed by the Chinese government, and the possibility that the app could be used for espionage or to spread propaganda.
So no more TikTok dances in the U.S. It makes you wonder what the long-term consequences of this ban will be. Will TikTok users just switch to other platforms? Could we see new social media giants emerge?
Those are really good questions. The ripple effects of this ban will likely be felt throughout social media. Some analysts believe that existing platforms like Instagram and YouTube will benefit from TikTok's absence. Others think that this could create an opportunity for new platforms to become popular. Only time will tell what the lasting impact will be.
It's interesting to think about all the possibilities. Now let's circle back to the Israel-Hamas ceasefire for a second. We talked about the hostages being released, but there was one story that stood out to me. One of the first hostages to be freed was a woman named Emily Damari. During a video call with her family, she showed that 2 of her fingers were missing.
It's a heartbreaking image, and it really shows the human cost of this conflict. Emily was held captive for over a year, and her injury is a reminder of the violence and suffering both sides have experienced. It's easy to get caught up in the political side of things and the strategic analysis, but it's so important to remember the individuals whose lives have been changed forever by this.
Yes. Every headline, every statistic represents a human story. It's easy to forget that.
You're absolutely right.
I think we need a break from the serious stuff for a minute. Let's talk about some of the quirky and offbeat stories that are out there today.
Okay, sounds good. What do you have?
This one's pretty wild. A surgeon in Taiwan live-streamed his own vasectomy as a gift to his wife.
As a gift. That's definitely different. I don't think that would be on my wish list.
It's definitely unique. He broadcasted the entire procedure on social media, and it got over 2 million views.
Wow. It seems like it definitely got people's attention. It speaks to our fascination with the unusual and, for some people, the desire to share even their most personal moments online.
It makes you think about privacy and what's appropriate to share.
It really does. Okay, what else do you have?
Here's another one. A Goldman Sachs analyst publicly criticized the company's CEO.
Now, that's unusual. Goldman Sachs is known for being very buttoned up and having a strict corporate culture. For an employee to speak out like that is really surprising. It makes you think there might be some bigger problems happening behind the scenes.
Yeah, the analyst apparently called out the CEO for not rewarding employees, even though the company is making record profits. It seems like a risky move, especially in such a hierarchical environment.
It does. And it could be part of a larger trend where employees are becoming more vocal about what they want and demanding better treatment from their employers. This incident could be a sign that employees feel more empowered to speak out against things they think are unfair, even in companies that have traditionally been very strict.
It'll be interesting to see what happens next. Hey, ready for a lighter one? This one's sure to make you smile. In Coimbatore, India, an elephant broke into a house and stole a bag of rice.
An elephant broke into a house. That's funny. It also highlights the fact that human settlements are increasingly encroaching on wildlife habitats.
That's a really good point. And it's likely that we'll see more encounters between humans and wild animals as we continue to build in their territories.
Exactly. It's a reminder that we need to be more mindful of the needs of other creatures as we expand our cities and towns. We need to find ways to coexist peacefully.
Well said. So we've talked about a lot today, from the hope of a ceasefire to the tragic consequences of violence, from economic inequality to quirky animal encounters. What stands out to you as the most important takeaway?
Today has been a day of contrast, for sure. We saw some hope with the ceasefire in the Middle East, but also a reminder of how fragile peace can be and the lasting impact of conflict. We saw the beginning of a new era in American politics while also facing challenges like wealth inequality and social unrest. And of course, we had some lighter moments like the elephant stealing rice. It reminds us that life can be both absurd and wonderful.
I think you summed it up perfectly. The world is a complex and constantly changing place. It's full of contradictions and surprises. It can be a lot to process. But that's what we try to do here on the Deep Dive. We try to make sense of it all and offer different perspectives.
It's definitely a lot to think about and process. It's what we're here for, though, to help make sense of it all and give you some different angles to think about.
Exactly. And hopefully spark some interesting conversations as well.
For sure. We always encourage you to think critically about everything, question what you see and hear, and consider different viewpoints. Because when it comes to these big global issues, there's rarely one right answer.
Well said. Now, before we wrap up, there's one more story I wanted to mention. It seems like everyone's been talking about this experiment a Delhi entrepreneur did with Uber. Have you heard about this?
Oh, yeah, that was a fascinating one. He basically found that Uber's pricing algorithm might be connected to what kind of phone you have and even your battery level.
Hold on. So you're saying if you have a fancy phone or your battery's low, you might end up paying more for the same ride?
That's what his research suggests. Of course, Uber says they aren't manipulating prices on purpose, but this experiment has definitely made people worry about how these algorithms work. They're making more and more decisions in our lives, and we don't even know how they do it.
Yeah, it's a little creepy to think that companies could be using our data to decide how much we pay for things without us even knowing.
It's a valid concern, and it shows why we need to be paying more attention to how these algorithms work and how they could be used in unfair ways. We need to ask tough questions about who benefits from these technologies and who might be getting the short end of the stick.
Definitely food for thought.
Yeah.
So that brings us to our final thought for today.
As we've seen in today's deep dive, technology is changing so fast, and it's having a huge impact on our lives in ways we're only just starting to understand. From social media algorithms to cryptocurrency, from AI to the future of work, technology is shaping the world around us at an unbelievable speed.
It's both exciting and kind of scary all at the same time.
I agree. So the question for all of you listening is this: how are you going to deal with all this change? How will you use technology to your advantage while still protecting your privacy, your independence, and your values?
It's a question we all need to be thinking about as we head further into the 21st century.
Couldn't agree more.
And on that note, that wraps up our deep dive into the news of the day. Thanks for joining us.
Until next time, everyone, stay curious, stay informed, and stay engaged with the world around you.